To go from Jane, so I think we're live. G'day everyone. This is Istvan, and you know me, and this is Sea Bear.
Right.
This is Istvan's Citran teddy bear that made it all around the world. Oh, it doesn't smell as bad as bloody Mark Slatz's bear. Anyway, so here we go. There's going to be a lot of things happening, first of all, in the next few days, because not only are all the entrants coming back, we've got 22 entrants coming in and all that sort of stuff, so quite looking forward to it. It's kind of fun. Now, the first thing I want to say is this one's not going to talk about his wind vane, all right? That's the first thing.
Good.
Second thing I want to say, he's not going to complain about anything, right? We're going to talk about the other side of Istvan. Now, the first thing, tell me about your Hungary connections, because you're obviously born in Hungary.
Right.
What's the story? How, you born in Hungary? Did you come across your parents to America
Right.
and all that stuff, or what happened?
Right. Hungarian origin, American. So, actually, I spent more than 40 years in Hungary, and actually, that's my birthplace, and I am the second generation in the shipping boating business.
Yeah. So what did your dad do? Second generation?
So yeah, it's interesting because Hungary became landlocked after the World War II, but still had a shipping company, the only shipping company in Hungary who had 5 branches. One of them was the Seagoing. So we were behind the Iron Curtain. By the way, my dad spent 50 years work for the same company. I personally spent 25 years. So we altogether, two of us, almost a century, and it's very rare. Yeah. And so sailing and in the maritime business, it was not my choice. Yeah. I was born into this, and thanks to my dad, thanks to my relatives, all my relatives sailed.
So does that mean you went on the ships, or you were management? Or?
Well, first, it's a little bit political because we were behind the Iron Curtain, and if you didn't have a special passport like the diplomats had, you were a kind of limited to the surrounding countries where they had the same socialist system. Yeah. So I couldn't go, let's say, even to Western Europe because I was restricted to stay within the surrounding countries. Yeah. Anyway, to cut a long story short, it was a kind of special opportunity for me to go abroad, explore the world, and when you are, after your high school graduation, you are young, you want to see the world, you want to explore it, and of course, that time there was no internet, no TV, just for the so-called rich people. So I just was limited to reading, and I read a lot. Thanks to my dad and so on, about the sea, about the adventures. So obviously the only way to get out and experience personally is join the seagoing shipping company. And so after the high school graduation, I went as a deck boy. That's the lowest rank on deck. On a ship, and within 13 years, what I spent with the company with this branch, I visited more than 100 countries, and I had the first-hand experience.
As a seaman, not an officer, just as a sailor?
No, actually, I was walking up on the rank. I was, obviously, you need a certain seat time. But, at the end, there was a special officer training in Hungary in a university. Okay. So I got the officer rank.
So you got the officer. So when did you leave there and get into sailing? Like, when did you get up into America?
Well, the sailing was first because we still could sail without having a sea. Yeah. So the so-called Hungarian Sea is a big lake. It's not big by Australian or U.S. standards, but it's the biggest lake in Central Europe. And it's called Balaton. And it's an excellent sailing ground, especially for dinghy sailing, but even for keelboats, So I started, my first keelboat was a Star, and then the Soling and so on. So I learned from the dinghies up to the keelboats. Okay,
so then when you had your idea of doing the first solo circumnavigation in your 34-footer, where did that evolve from? In Hungary, or?
No, it's from Hungary.
Okay, so when you set off, did you were you in America then? By the time you set off,
not at all.
You left on that voyage.
No. What happened there is it's a kind of, a special turn in my life. I interrupted my seamanship career because of family tragedy. I lost 3 very close relatives, including my mother and brother, within 6 months.
Wow.
So I needed to stay at home to take care of the rest of the family. And I was the very first in Hungary who established a private sailing school on this lake. We are still behind the Iron Curtain.
Does it still exist? Oh, that's a sailing school, not a yacht club.
No, it was a sailing school, but I developed it. I was the very first joint venture with an Austrian guy. Actually, believe it or not, small word. We imported the boats from this place.
From Le Sable d'Olonne, from France?
Right.
Le Sable d'Olonne or France?
No, from France.
Oh, yeah.
But they were built here in Sable d'Olonne.
Oh, really?
and then we had, and this is a unique thing, since we still had the Iron Curtain, our charter business was booming because the Western German relatives chartered the boats because they could come to Hungary. Hungary was a little bit more open.
Were these Jonto boats?
I'm sorry?
Were these Jonto catamarans, charter boats?
No.
Right,
These were Benettos and Janos, about 30, 40 feet long, regular monohulls.
Gotcha.
But just imagine that they were able to unite with their East German relatives on our chartered boats.
Unbelievable.
So
that's how it worked.
Yeah. So our business was.
How many people went home with them?
No, our business was booming, and that was the problem because we still had the socialist system, and this was a pioneer enterprise.
Never get into religion and politics,
right?
So when did you start building your first boat? To do the solo.
So believe or not, this is the reason when they kind of freeze our business because of the prospering. I decided, okay, I need a very objective test for myself. I needed to regain my self-esteem, and I said. I always had this kind of childhood dream about Slocum was the first one as a role model, and Chichester the second one. And you know what? I have this dream. I can test myself objectively. So that's the reason I started to build my boat.
So you built the boat and you took off. Okay.
It was in 1990, and that's my first solo circumnavigation. And frankly, it had one stop. Right? I stopped in Australia,
which wasn't really planned, was it?
No, it was.
No, it was.
No, it was. Because that time I just wanted to execute Chichester's. So pretty much that time I was in the Chichester class. And so anyway, it was successful. The problem was on the marketing side. Because
tough times.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't market it properly. Actually, as for the size of the boat, as for the routing and everything, still an unofficial world record as for the speed. We have this 11 years sunspot activity cycle, and I was on the top. So the radio communication was brilliant, and of course I had, the Dodrum. I sailed through the Dodrum in 35 knots breeze. So my average boat speed was 125 nautical miles per day as an average, 8 months, 18 days.
That's pretty cool. Well, some know that I met Istvan when we were off Cape Horn.
Right.
You know that story, but so I won't go into it too far.
Right.
But it was very funny. I had a GPS. He had sextant, no sun. Didn't really know where he was. Just knew Cape Horn was up there. Had to go wide, and I was zipping around. So anyway, kind of ironic to be back here 30 odd years later and doing the same thing again with a sextant. Anyway, so that was fun. And then some people don't know the genesis or the concept of you actually winning the round the world race as a fully crewed entrant.
Right.
Where did that idea come from? At what time did you end up starting to establish in America? Was that straight after that trip?
No. Actually, it was a kind of avalanche effect. So it started to roll when I finished my one-stop solo circumnavigation. You change a lot. I mean, first of all, for 1 year I was in the air because I just couldn't readjust to the land life.
That happens.
And luckily, I had 1992. 1992 was the 500 years anniversary of discovery of America. And there was a unique race. They followed Columbus' first voyage to actually it was not US to the Bahamas. and we had this Columbus race and I entered into this race, and that was the first time when I sailed to the US after the finish.
So that was a private entry. You funded it. You bought the boat. Or you had some sponsors
I used
as well?
I used the same single-handed boat for this race, except the solo sailing was not permitted because we had 26 nations, 146 boats.
Oh, gotcha. You've gone back. Yeah, okay.
And then. I needed an extra crew, so it was a double-handed sailing. By the way, in our class we became second and 19th overall, and we were the second smallest boat.
Yeah.
But after the finish in San Salvador, which is in the Bahamas, where Columbus had his landfall, I had friends in South Florida and said, "You are here. Why don't you come and have a look?" And that was my first visit in the U.S.
Okay.
And
so
everything starts there.
Yeah.
Because my friends told me that, look, you are here, so why don't you apply for the green card? And frankly, I didn't have the intention to apply for it because that time I was very hopeful. There was a change. The Iron Curtain came down. Berlin Wall came down. Yeah. We were very optimistic. Actually, I had my second child then. That's the best reflection. I was full with optimism. And so anyway, when I was sailing back to Europe, solo, by the way, from US to Genoa to Italy, which was the birthplace of Columbus, I sailed back. My ham buddy told me that you won the lottery, and said, "What lottery? I am in the middle of the ocean."
You got a green card.
Yeah, and then
you see a certain irony to that green card,
right?
Because you got a green card here too.
I think this was more difficult to get. So anyway, so to jump that thing, so I didn't want to use that green card.
Yeah.
But in '94, unfortunately, the Hungarians brought back the Socialist Party, and I said, you know what, I cannot sail against the wind, I cannot fight against my own people, so I have a green card and I give a... There was another professional feature that pretty much the Hungarian shipping company was a kind of collapsed and was taken apart. So I needed to go to a place where I have sea and where I have boats and when I can.
So you went over there and started working, and so then coming back to the round the world race, the fully crewed race, that evolved out of America.
No, well, that was my last Hungarian flag thing, because in 1996, when this race, the Hong Kong Challenge, the idea really quickly, actually Sir Robin was the race sailing director in that particular race, but they had a kind of disagreement with the... So anyway, Sir Robin a kind of separated, ran the Clipper race, and the rest of the Hong Kong Challenge stayed as Hong Kong Challenge thing, but we sailed parallel pretty much. So that time I had a 55-foot boat and I had full crew. I mean 10, 12 people. And I don't like to repeat, so I always like to go for a special new project. And when I did the solo sailing, I said, oh, it would be great to sail with a full crew. When I did the full crew thing, that I had a nostalgia towards solo sailing, because believe me, that's challenging too. So, but really, the reason I was very keen on participating in this race, because 1996 Hungary celebrated the 1,100 years anniversary of their kingdom.
Golly. Okay.
And the date, October 23rd of the start in London, was exactly the anniversary date. So I said, I need to have a floating embassy for the country, and that's what I did.
Okay, so that's what you went. So what's the course? Tell me the course, just briefly.
Oh, there were 18 stopovers.
18.
18.
Holy.
But Don.
How long did it take?
But this is the blueprint. Jimmy Cornell, who organized the race, laid down the blueprint for the Volvo races, because people just learned it from the Hong Kong Challenge, from Jimmy Cornell's blueprint, that you need to have stopovers for the publicity, because you are offshore. Who will see you? That time you didn't have that high-tech internet thing. So, believe or not, in Japan, for example, Fukuoka was our Japanese stopover. We had a huge... First of all, we won the race, so
Yeah.
that's important.
That's fair enough. I'll get your reasons.
And the other thing is that we were a really successful floating embassy for the country,
Yeah.
because I remember in Malaysia we had such a media echoing, you know, everyone, that a landlocked country, and it was cool, you know, that to show the Hungarian flag for the countries who had coastline, and they had serious maritime history.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so silly question. You don't have to answer this in detail, but how did you make your money? What do you do for a living? How did you, you got out, you ended up in America, you got a job and all that stuff, and then you end up with a 55-footer. And what were you doing?
Right, exactly. I can turn the question and say, how do you make money from the gold?
I never make money.
No.
Just people always.
Yeah, well, pretty much what happens that, first of all, I never forget that it was really difficult, but you know, I promise not to complain. But when I finished my one-stop solo circumnavigation, I was in debt.
Yeah.
So actually, I started.
That's pretty normal.
Yeah. So I started to charter with my and you know, this is what I was thinking, that I rounded the Cape Horn with this boat, and now I am taking photo models with me on Lake Balaton, shooting commercials, it was a kind of not really respectful towards the boat, but the Hong Kong challenge was different because it had such a good publicity for the country, such a good PR. So we got really good sponsors. So that was different.
Okay, and so then when you got out of that, you started sailing instruction and just your normal day-to-day life just before the GGR. What were you doing then?
Well, it was not just normal sailing instruction.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
So
when I got to US, if you go to US, I had 2 university diplomas. I was too educated, but it doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't care about certificates on the wall. And so I, believe it or not, I started to work in a shipyard. And I was an apprentice for a Vietnamese welder, and
how old were you then?
And starting at $12 an hour, but that particular shipyard was owned by a guy who built the very first aluminium-made America Cup boat. So I became his. What's the right word? Not secretary, it's not, maybe the butler, not good either, but that's one thing is for sure, I learned a lot from that guy. We spent all our private, except that unfortunately offshore sailing comes with a price. So unfortunately my 23 years long marriage suffered, I got divorced, and my main goal was to be a full-time dad. So my single parenthood started that day, and that's the reason I walked into a shipyard and working, regular 8 to 5, make sure that I don't need to hire a babysitter or something.
You got a pretty impressive baby that grew up to be quite something. She's being a frustrated flyer. His daughter is something awesome.
Well, actually,
2 minutes on your daughter.
I can brag with 2 daughters, but definitely the younger one is a Navy pilot, and she is definitely a captain of a 18-person patrol plane, and the first pilot, and my older one is a brilliant trauma surgeon. So they are doing great, and obviously this is my biggest accomplishment.
Must have been on the mum's side. Don't worry about it.
Well, people say impressive. That the mailman, right?
Oh, okay.
So anyway, the most exciting part of my merchant maritime career is when I was a pirate. Because after
maritime pilot,
after Bob Director, who designed this.
Bob Director.
Oh, you know him?
I sort of know of him. I was once along in 1990 with it. I took my boat there to Director's Yard to get the repairs when the bow peeled.
Bob Director, we spent 2 years together like this.
Oh, really?
And I learned a lot from him.
In America, you'll know Bob Director.
And I sailed his boat with his family during the Easter or Christmas.
He built awesome boats.
Awesome boats, and he was a genius on boat building. Anyway, after his death, he passed away after 2 or 3 years, and then I joined the U.S. It was the largest recovery company in the U.S. So all the bank loan boats were taken back by our company, and all the government like when you had money laundering or drug trafficking or whatever. The U.S. Marshal arrested the boats, and we took care of it. I was the yard manager. I was in charge 400-500 boats a day.
Holy dude. Is that where you bought your 56-footer from to go and do the Hong Kong challenge?
No.
You got it cheap.
No. That was an expensive.
It was off the books.
No.
Yeah.
That was an expensive.
Yeah. Okay. So then all of a sudden, how did you hear about the GGR? What happened? Was it a magazine article or?
No, that time I was a sailing director at a very gorgeous yacht club, the Swanaka Yacht Club in New York, because after the economical crisis, we needed to streamline the company at National Liquidators. So I moved up as a work to New York, and pretty much I tried to kind of take care of the sailing part of the yacht club. And that was the time when I heard of the GGR, and I realized that my age is close to retirement, and I felt that I am interested in anniversaries. So I sailed in the 100 years anniversary of the Chicago Mackinac race. I sailed in the 92 Columbus race. I sailed in the 96 1100 years anniversary race for Hungary. So
oh boy.
So the
Yeah. Okay, so that's what happened. And did it explain the experience when you first read about it? Was it instant, or what? Did you let it think about it for a while? Or?
No, I think it was instant. And I'm not sure about your record keeping, but I am pretty sure I was definitely one of the first entrants in this thing.
It's hard to remember now. It seems funny that it was sort of like 2014. We announced it April 15. That seems like a long way ago now.
Right.
It's quite amazing. It's just going crazy. Okay, so you then get yourself a boat, and you've done the race, and you've had some real challenges. And without going into the issues or fine detail, any regrets about doing the GGR?
Oh no! My bucket list is full. It's pretty much, as I mentioned. I don't like to repeat. So I had the one stop. I had a westbound full crew circumnavigation, and now I have the non-stop. So I really, I think I am done.
Okay.
No ice for sailing.
So in terms of then, if we look at the planning phase and then the execution phase, right? So the planning before you left to come over here,
right?
Which was the more enjoyable of the two, getting the boat ready and getting it done, or actually doing the race?
It's interesting because I was usually more on the operational side, so I was not really keen on being in the boat building business. However, I built it with two friends, the first solo circumnavigator boat within 2 years, but that was different because it was a brand new boat. This one, I needed to kind of rip off completely, start from scratches, but I already had a hull and a deck, and of course I reinforced it, but I was a kind of stuck. I couldn't reinvent everything. But I believe or not, I'm not very keen on doing fiberglass work, and I did a lot, but I started to enjoy it, and I felt a kind of sorry that it ended because I have this idea and I can change that too. So it was interesting, and of course very hard work, and it took almost 4 years.
So do you think that was more enjoyable than the actual race? The building, getting the whole machine ready to go?
Please don't misunderstand. I don't want to underestimate the race itself.
No, I'm always fascinated
but it was enjoyable. A kind of routine. I really didn't have new challenges regarding the way to round the world, because the first one was the same thing. The big difference that time the non-stop without stopping, the longest leg was 4 months 18 days. Now it's almost double. So the lengths, I think I was the one who is emphasized this is the super marathon. So
yeah.
it's not just in sailing. In generally sport history, there is no. Of course, the first Golden Globe was the longest one, and maybe Tapio can beat that. But well,
I sent Robin a message today and said, hey, Robin, you're doing really well. You're keeping in front of Tapio. Well done. And in all honesty, I was suggesting that to him on the basis that it's pretty interesting, Because all that time ago, he's still in front of some of our boats, and he's still finishing. You know what I mean? It's quite an achievement.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this respect, Tapio is a winner.
Yeah.
as the longest without stop sailor, right?
Yeah.
So back to my challenge. So I needed to double that non-stop section, but the main challenge was obviously on the age side. When I was 30 years younger, your sensors, your fitness, everything is better. But on the other hand, I think because you cannot run, as you know well, around the world race without the minimum safety requirement equipment. In my first solo, I didn't have EPIRB, I didn't have AIS, I didn't have radar transponder, and so on. So in a way, that was also challenging.
Okay, so of the whole race on the water, what was the most memorable part? Good, bad, or indifferent? The moment that captures in your mind, the one that's stuck there. The most memorable thing, the one thing that not to give you a perspective of the whole lot, just one incident or something that happened. What's the biggest thing in your brain about the whole? Something that happened, or some good, bad, or indifferent of the whole voyage. What burns a hole in your brain?
Right. It's. Again, everyone has a different motivation and different personal approach on this circumnavigation. This time, since it was, as I mentioned, not really new to me, the length yes, but the duration yes, but nothing else. I had some kind of, and this time I didn't have a kind of national mission or whatever, so I needed to kind of zoom in and have some personal cargo, as I say, for myself, and thanks to my trade that I spend so much time offshore away from the family, I try to spend more time with my family members, and I mentioned that I spread the ashes of my dad at Cape Horn, so he was with me, but not just with his ashes, but actually, believe or not, the duration, the length, the marathon character or feature of the race gave me a unique opportunity to spend really valuable time with him. So pretty much I relived the time what we spent together, and cool. Because of the isolation, it came really close to me. So the most valuable for me, or the most memorable, that I got really close to my dad during this race.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so my observation of you during this race was that there was a lot of things going wrong, right, obviously, and you were expressing yourself on that and so on, and then you were facing the challenges of fixing them up. But I got the distinct impression that part of your ability to survive and even enjoy the race was fixing things, you know what I mean?
Right.
In the context that if you didn't have all these things,
right,
you would be sort of, what do I do next? Well, how do you think about that?
And frankly, this is the feature of this kind of race, which is an advantage, I think, with like the Vendée Globe, where you have everything, push buttons, and you get the satellites and internet and everything.
Either works or it doesn't.
And you don't need to spend hours and hours shooting for the sun and so on.
Yeah.
So you have extra time and energy to deal with yourself. So I think that's a disadvantage. Luckily, they are able to circumnavigate the world within 3 months, so they don't have this marathon challenge. But for us, I think the breakdowns are helpful, because you are busy. Your brain, your muscles, everything is working to solve problems. I think there is a slight, maybe more than a slight misunderstanding on my reports. My intention was not to broadcast my complaints. My intention was to broadcast that anything can break down, but you can fix it. Yeah. And I think for me, this race was more a kind of seamanship endeavor. I just wanted to demonstrate and prove that it doesn't matter. You need to finish the race. It doesn't matter if you lose this or that. Yeah. And I think in this case, I proved it right.
I think you're right in one sense, because some people would see it as, Istvan's complaining again about something else. I never really saw that. I could tell when you were complaining, but I could tell when you were explaining. They're different, you know what I mean? Okay. You're explaining something,
right,
and that's just you expressing what's happening. So there is a difference, but I think a lot of people would think when you're explaining something, it's as if you're complaining all the time.
Right.
I know you're a little bit better than that, and I'm a sailor as well, so I understand it. So, but maybe some of the mums and dads thought that, but I thought it was very real. And the interesting part is you haven't sort of seen a lot of this yet because you're still catching up with the social media. But as you can imagine, all the entrants are different, and there's real colour there, and it's really interesting stuff. So, a bit of an obscure one, but what was the happiest moment? What was the most what would you say, the real high, the real upper, be it full moon, stars, calm water, whatever? Is there emotion there, or a feeling that this particular time was just absolutely off the planet, it was fantastic, or I was really happy about it, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, unfortunately, I didn't pay so much on my environment. Of course, you pay a lot on the storms and the no-wind situations. But I remember at my first circumnavigation, I spent definitely more time observing my surroundings, enjoying a sunset or sunrise or a beautiful starry sky and so on. This time I was just too busy, and the biggest, as you already mentioned, when I was able to cope with something and solve the problem, and I said, "Wow, I am brilliant," and I pat myself on the shoulder, and frankly, those were, and what it's not about me, it's about seamanship. That you never give up the ship. I am quoting the slogan from the Navy, but you never give up the ship, and for me. I'm sorry to say that for me, I just cannot imagine that I would jump into a life. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen, but that would be really the last resort.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now I was surprised at how quickly you've sort of got off the boat. The boat's technically sold. It will probably turn up in 22, all those sorts of things. So you've really drawn a hard line there. That's it. You've had enough, and you've really. Which was the better of the voyages? This one or your first one? Which one do you think, now that you've had a little bit of a time to reflect on it? Did you enjoy the first one because it was the first, and this one it was the last? How would you compare the two?
Well, it's difficult because when you start to work on a boat and you spend more and more time, you are bonding really quick. So I fell in love with Puffin, and I had a very emotional attachment after passing the 5 southernmost capes, and when I got to the finish line. She was my partner. She was, it was not a solo finish, it was a double finish. And obviously I am very attached to the boat, and I am very keen on following. So let's say if someone is taking the vote for the 2022 Golden Globe race, I would volunteer, to advise. I would volunteer.
Oh, we get Spookies here. Come over, stand here. Spooky just turned up. You might be too hot. We're just live on Facebook.
This is the first time. and this is live on Facebook.
Yeah. Keep it rolling. I thought it was the cleaner coming in. They would have to tell them.
Right.
Oh, you can say g'day.
Hello, yes. I'm very happy to see you.
Congratulations.
I was sorry to don't be there when you arrived. I was too far.
Right,
Yeah,
It was
right.
in Marseille.
Right.
Yeah,
That's okay. We can spend time here together. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to pull up a chair and join the conversation? You can pull that one around and see we can talk together. I mean,
can.
we're nearly finished. We've been at it for half an hour, but we can see. You can at least listen. I was just saying, what were we talking about?
Right. I am not the right. No. Actually, I am comparing the first one and the last one.
Yeah.
So obviously, Jean-Luc can compare the 5,
Yeah.
but I can compare only 3. So, well, really briefly, the first one, I was crying when I sold my first circumnavigator boat. The boat did everything to prevent that.
Yeah.
I had barnacles on the bottom. The propeller was kind of stuck. So to cut the long story short, I never forget that when I was sailing from Boca Raton to Fort Lauderdale, the boat, I was at the bow and my tears, I was crying like hell.
Yeah.
And luckily, the owner, who is the only owner since then,
Yeah.
donated money for my Golden Globe racing. He was here at the start.
Oh, really?
He was following my start and told me, if you sell Puffin, if you want to buy Salambo back, which is my first circumnavigator boat, this is the opportunity. I still have the boat for you.
So do you think you might, or
Yeah.
maybe? Yeah,
No,
that's the plan.
Yeah, that's the
Buy the
plan.
first one back. That's cool. So we think some Puffin may be sold. So you're just saying you're going to buy both the first back? Maybe.
I am very attached to that boat, and of
Okay.
course to Puffin as well.
Yeah.
But especially if Puffin is in the next race, I definitely like
Hang on,
to.
I just heard Eva screaming because she'll think that you want to reenact and go round again in the
No,
first
no,
boat.
no. That will be lake sailing on Lake Balaton. No.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty cool.
No.
So what would you say to any entrant in 2022 now? What would you say to them? Someone that's coming in to do the next race.
Actually, I won't. I just paraphrase what not my body, but I respect the guy very much, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who the next country who went to US from Austria. Austria has a certain connection with Hungary because the old days Austro-Hungarian monarchy was the third biggest empire after France and Great Britain in Europe. So Arnold Schwarzenegger had a presentation about success.
Yeah.
And I cannot quote him word by word, but the first thing is that when you dream big, right?
Yeah.
And I jumped. He kind of had 5 advices, and one of them was just you need to work your ass off to accomplish that dream, and never dream small, and stick with it.
Yeah.
And don't listen to the deniers, right?
Yeah.
So these are the things that, because when you do this Golden Globe thing or any other big challenges, it's not just for you.
Yeah.
You inspire people, and it's a mutual reaction between. And frankly, when I had downtimes, and I think I had a couple, then I realized that I cannot let them down.
Yeah.
I had from Hungary a retired lady who sent certain amount of small donation, but for her that was big.
Yeah.
And as high school 17 years old boy gave me 200 cash,
Really?
US dollar, and I said I cannot let them down. Just simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it happens.
And of course they followed me and they cheered for me, and it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah. Well, we've got people now preparing for 2026. That's what's happening. Yeah. Young people, but all sorts of people. They're starting to think, they've got to do this. I mean, it's starting to go like that. It's quite crazy, Anyway.
But let's say I think after Jean-Luc, I am the second oldest man among the finishers, right? And we, and especially Jean-Luc, can a kind of broadcast that, come on, retirement doesn't mean that you just go for dinners and for, I don't know, maybe dance, but you challenge yourself, you maintain your momentum, and you are still active. I think it's important.
We'll just quickly move into very dangerous ground here. We had dinner the other night and talked about possible changes for the 2022 edition of the GGR, and we'll have briefings soon, and we'll make some ideas and plans. If you could change one thing about the GGR in 22, if you were doing it, what would you change? Or if you could change one thing in this one, what would you change?
Oh my God! Let me improvise. For me, it was a challenge to follow and catch up with the rules, and I am a more old-fashioned type guy. Obviously, I am not very good on online things, and occasionally I didn't have. I had in New York, alongside New York area, where I couldn't make a phone call or couldn't go on the internet. Yeah. So I like to have a kind of printed hard copy of the racing rules, where everything is detailed, and I can take it with me on the boat, and I can look it up if I have doubts. Okay, it's here, black and white. Yeah. So I like to have a very clear hard copy of the notice of race or the sailing rules. So I think that would be helpful, including all the important parts, because when you are swinging from here to there and collect the data, for me it was a challenge when I was building the boat.
Yeah. There's a lot in it. In fact, I'm looking now at the master of the rules, Jean-Luc. First time I came over to the Vendée in November 16, I saw Jean-Luc's notice of race. He had a copy, printed out, and it was just covered with notes and bits and pieces. So there's a lot in it. There's three parts to the rules for the people. There's the safety rules, there's the concept rules, and then there's the communication rules. And there's a lot in it. It's a big book. And we're trying not to have too many changes, but yeah, it takes a lot. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to what we're talking about?
Well, frankly, I think what I really liked in this race, that we had all the boats and we gave future to these boats. So pretty much in my case, the boat was abandoned, not really abandoned, but the owner passed away, and the widow didn't have the boating knowledge, how to maintain a boat. So the boat was kept on the hard for 10 years. Yeah. So the boat was
recycled.
And pretty much that gave me a noble mission to restore the boat, putting into life. And frankly, I have been almost as Jean-Luc. What we realize in sailing, that we believe that we are so environmentally friendly activity. You look at the boat building. It's very difficult to maintain. When you create new classes, when you start with new things, you always leave a bunch of boats behind. Yeah. And they became a kind of abandoned, and then I felt this is a big plus in this race, that wow, we gave hope to these boats. Actually, we put them back into the...
It's interesting, because some of the events talk a lot about sustainability, and it's a really important thing with the environment. And then when you go and build a brand new boat, there's a lot of stuff going into those boats.
We know that.
But I understand it, because when you race a fast boat, that's the way it goes. So it's a concept difference. But but yeah, it's interesting stuff. Okay. I think that's probably about enough. We've been yattering on for a bit of a time. Anything you'd like to say to all your fans, Jean-Luc?
No. I say hello.
Get ready for everything happening. Okay, so that's about it. We will be auctioning more bears, by the way. Our viewing audience is dropping dramatically because all the boats are finished. So we'll talk about that later. But anyway, thanks for that. So see you later, and thank you, Istvan.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Jean-Luc.
Okay, see ya.
See you, bye-bye. Bon, parfait.